This is Leaders in the Trenches, and your host today is Gene Hammett.
Hi, my name is Gene Hammett. I'm with Leaders in the Trenches, and my question for you today is, how do you find the right agency for you? Have you ever thought about hiring that marketing agency that will really drive results for your business? It's probably not a vendor. It's probably more like a strategic partner. The big difference between a vendor and a strategic partner is a vendor will do the work that you tell them to do and not much more. And they push back on really tracking the results of what they do because they're not in control of that. They may not even know how to go beyond exactly what you want them to do in that playbook. But a strategic partner is a kind of agency that you want in your business, I believe, because they will drive you to and challenge you to come up with the right strategy for your business. They will go deeper and they will go in such a way that you get it right. And a strategic partner is going to be much more transparent with you. And today we're going to share with you, with the interview, 3 questions that you must have and ask your agency if you want to find the right agency for you. We have Tyler Sickmeyer with Fidelitas Development. Yeah, that's a mouthful. Fidelitas Development. Tyler is a previous client of mine, and he's been working and growing like fantastically. And it's just such an impressive thing to see what he's doing with his agency. I'm glad to be able to share with you some of the things that they're doing, and it will help you in your growth of your business. All right, here's the interview with Tyler. Hey, Tyler, how are you?
Great, Gene. Thanks for having me on.
Well, it's good to have you here at Leaders in the Trenches, and we go way back. You're a previous client of mine.
Absolutely. A Gene Hammett evangelist to the nth degree.
Well, I appreciate that. I've already told our audience a little bit about you, but let's go ahead and introduce them to you and who do you serve?
Certainly. So I run a full-service agency called Fidelitas Development out of San Diego. We serve a variety of clients, large and small. Our niche is to come in as more of a strategic partner, Gene. So we like to be involved not just in the X's and O's and blocking and tackling on the marketing side of, hey, we need 5 Facebook posts or we need an email marketing campaign, but actually being able to come in strategically and helping them figure out why we're doing what we're doing, and then how are we going to report ROI on that? How are we going to make that integrate into the overall marketing efforts for the organization? Because as you know, with a lot of organizations, there are often silos, and the left hand doesn't talk to the right hand, and we help solve a lot of that. So that's our background. But again, excited to be here with you today.
Well, you mentioned the silo thing, and it's come up a lot, and I've lived it. You've probably lived it too, and
Sure.
and seen it with clients. Why do you think there is such a silo between marketing and sales in the first place?
You know, it's interesting. I think part of it comes down to one side really not understanding the other. A lot of times you have sales leaders that are very focused on doing things a certain way, and sales leaders care about one set of metrics, and marketing leaders care about another set of metrics. So, for example, obviously, everyone in marketing wants to track results, right? We all want to track ROI, and we want to know what happened to those leads that we generate. Did they convert? And on the sales side, they don't care about reporting if they converted. They just want to know if they're going to convert. And so oftentimes you have sales and marketing that don't talk to each other. When they do, marketing's griping for better lead tracking, and sales is griping for better leads because the last set was worthless, and so they didn't even call on the last set from marketing. So a lot of times you have almost a turf war going on internally that can really be detrimental to the brand's overall ROI on both departments.
So if that's the problem, and I agree with you because I'm seeing this all the time too, it doesn't matter what company it is. It could be a technology company. It could be a manufacturing company. It could be someone who's not even marketing focused, or someone who is marketing focused. And you still got these silos and fiefdoms. In an ideal world, right? We're just going to go into the future. If you're working with a company at a strategic level, what kind of organization and how would they work together between sales and marketing that would make your job even easier?
Honestly, Gene, we talk about this a lot, is we really pursue transparent communication across the board in a partnership mindset. And that's really big for us when we're looking for clients or when we're talking to someone that we're potentially going to do business with. We emphasize that. We say, hey, if you're looking for a vendor, if you want the 5 tweets a week and do you want fries with that, we're not great for that. Like, that's not who we are. We're going to come in as more of a strategic partner. And that means open communication both ways. That means you can't hem and haw when we want to see your sales numbers. You've got to share that information openly. And likewise, when we talk about sales and marketing working well together, they've got to have that open partnership. If marketing only generated 7 or 8 quality leads, great, then say that. Don't fluff it with 10 or 12 more that aren't going to convert and waste sales' time in the process just so you can hit your number for the day or the month or whatever. And likewise, on the sales side, they've got to invest and take that partnership mindset and say, hey, if I'm going to be a good partner to my marketing team, I've got to track whether or not these things convert so they can do a better job for me in the future. And I think part of it just comes from a leadership standpoint of communicating that mindset from the top down.
I write a lot about leadership, and the research I've done, I was kind of cueing you in a little bit of this, what I've done over the last 6 months. And radical transparency is a buzzword. Let's just be honest. It is something that people talk about. Very few companies are really able to have those kind of conversations where they say what they mean and they're willing to take, not look good. It's hard to have that radical transparency, and it's probably even harder to have it with your outside vendor sometimes, because you sometimes you don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but you are, right?
Absolutely. And sometimes there's a little bit too much protectionism of, we can't give away company secrets, or we can't disclose that information to an outside party. And yeah, I guess, but if you don't trust us with your information, how are you going to trust us with your marketing or with your brand, which is far more valuable than your sales numbers, which half the time, if we're talking about a publicly traded company, Gene, it's Googleable anyways in some format. Why not give more accurate data so that you can get better resources and better output from your partners that you're working with, all for the greater good of the organization that employs you?
So, this is not exactly where we had planned to go, but I kind of like this conversation because it really does show a little bit of difference between you and what's called a vendor. So let's go into that just a little bit so that we can all be clear. When someone says, I just need to generate more leads and we're going to do it, these strategy, we want to use Facebook or something. I'm sure you can do that, right? You have the capability to do that, but you had said a number of times here, we're strategic. We're not just the tactical partner. So what do you get with a strategic partner?
Absolutely. I think part of it comes with the mindset, Gene, of starting with why. So for example, a vendor, if you're a marketing manager at brand X and you ask for a campaign to be sent out, a vendor agency is just going to go ahead and send that out. They're going to execute it to the best of their ability. Their goal is going to be to make you happy as the marketing manager, because that's who they report to. They're not going to come back and ask why, or say, hey, what if we tried this, or what if we did this in a different way, or actually, we have to be honest with you, this copy's horrible. Do you care if we rewrite it? That honesty is not going to be there, right? It's kind of like if your spouse let you go out in public with your zipper down, you'd be pretty ticked at your spouse, right? Because you can trust your spouse to call you out on stuff. I know mine certainly will. And likewise, I think being a good partner means having your clients' backs. It means looking out for them and saying, hey, are you sure you want to go to market with this? Here's why we think this might be better to go in a different direction. And then not just have an opinion, but back it up with facts. So taking that extra 15 to 30 minutes or an hour to do some additional research and say, hey, I know we disagree and we're going to do what you want to do at the end of the day, but let me show you some concrete data on why we disagree, and then see if we can't persuade you that this is going to be a better way to go that's in your best interest and our best interest. And that way we can do better work together. Because otherwise, Gene, at the end of the day, we all get the blame for it anyways.
Yeah, you will. I want to go zero into the most important thing with anybody, whether you're in sales or marketing. When you're hiring someone else, you're hiring an agency like Fidelitas Development or anyone else, all we care about is results.
Yep.
Now, we know we care about results. What are you guys doing as a strategic partner to really zero in on the results that a client wants, whether it be more leads or more sales or whatever it may be?
I'm glad you asked that, Gene, because it's actually kind of an interesting story. So are you familiar with strategic operations consulting? StratOp, as it's called for short?
No.
Okay, great. So StratOp was started by a guy named Tom Patterson, who consulted Ford when they were the only ones to not take money during the bailout. He consulted Boeing when they came out with the 777 Dreamliner. And if you fast track all the way back to the 80s, he actually consulted the U.S. government on why the Japanese were kicking our butts in automobile manufacturing. And what he found was it's completely different mindset. So in the U.S., when we solve a problem, we've got point A and point B, and we just try to go in a straight line to point B as fast as we can. right? We want the fastest, simplest, most efficient solution to the problem. That's what it is. On to the next problem to solve. On the other hand, you have in Japan from point A to point B, they'll go about halfway from point A to point B, and then they'll circle in on the best answer rather than just any answer. And it's just a cultural difference. And that's why the Japanese were so much better at car manufacturing for so long before we started to figure some of this out. And those same strategic operational principles that Tom Patterson applied to large businesses in the Fortune 50 and up are things that work for small businesses or leaders of any size or at any level in their organization. So, for example, when we onboard a new client, we use some of Tom Patterson's exercises, such as there's an exercise I like to alliterate called the 4 helpful lists. And so, Gene, what we would do is, like, let's say we're onboarding your business as a client, we'll actually put every element that we're responsible for in our scope into one of 4 buckets. There's right, wrong, missing, and confused. Everything falls into one of those 4. So, for example, if we were going to break down email marketing, for example, which it's not specific enough to just put email marketing in one of those 4 buckets. You've got to break it down to, all right, well, where's the platform go? Okay, well, so we're on MailChimp, but we know MailChimp's not the right platform for us long term. So our platform is wrong. Our copywriter's really great. She does an awesome job for us. So our email copy is in the right column. And we just go through element by element, from design to coding to imagery to A/B testing, et cetera. So we put everything into one of these 4 columns, and then we use that data to create what we call our wins, or our what's important nows. And so we identify our wins. So what's going to make a difference for the client immediately? And that's where we focus right out of the gate. And we only have 1 or 2 wins at a time typically. That doesn't mean we're not doing other things, but those are our key things that we're really focused on. So, hey, we're really focused on this win. We're going to deliver by May 15th, or we're going to deliver by June 30th, or whatever the milestone is. And someone gets assigned that. And so there's accountability there, whether it's on the client side or it's on our side. And there's a hard due date. So that way we can keep ourselves accountable and be great partners to each other. So, for example, if a client promises that they're going to get us imagery by a certain date and they don't get it, we can follow up with them and say, hey, what happened? You said you'd have it by this date. Oh, well, we got busy, or we got pulled in a different direction. Okay, that's fine, but that's going to change the outlook of our partnership for the next 3 weeks, because we're either going to have to play catch up, or we can rearrange priorities, whatever the case may be. And so we really try to parlay that into a better experience for the client. And they also know that we're not out of sight, out of mind. I think that happens with agencies a lot, where all of a sudden everyone looks up and realizes that it's the 25th of the month, and no one knows what got done that month. And so now all of a sudden the marketing manager is scrambling, the agency is scrambling, and really the results are half-assed at best. And so rather than have that sort of situation, we try to be a lot more intentional about it and make sure that we hit milestones as we go along. And then again, everything is tied back to that overall strategy.
Hi, this is Gene. I just want to take a break in the moment of this interview to give you a message, because we've been working on something with our clients and it really is pretty exciting. I want to share with you about the culture scorecard. Specifically, it's called the Transformational Culture Scorecard. This will give you insight into where you are right now in 8 different areas of your business. We're going to go from mission down through sales and marketing to leadership and people and systems. There's 8 total areas that we're going to go through this. We're looking at them across your business, and you can find out where you score on this. So if you want to find out more about that specific to you, just go to genehammett.com/culture, and you can get the Transformational Culture Scorecard. All right, now back to the interview. Well, I appreciate you going through that level of work, and that's not what traditional agencies are doing. So thanks for sharing that with us. I want to zero in on one little specific of the piece, and maybe I kind of hoped you would go there, but now I'm going to bring you right back to it.
Sure.
ROI. Like, I'm the VP of sales. I want to work with my vendor around what's the ROI of us spending $20,000 a month with you to get these leads. How are you looking at and tracking ROI for your clients?
Awesome. So it's really twofold, Gene. So first is the top line ROI when we're looking at ROI for the organization as a whole, which that's what really matters. First and foremost, that's why we got hired, is to make our client more money. Like that's why we're here at the end of the day. And so really what we need to do, especially in that onboarding process, is we need to reverse engineer everything that we're doing and how that works into the client's organization. So, for example, if our goal at the end of the day is more leads into their sales funnel, then we need to track what percentage of those leads are actually closing, as well as what those are worth. Another mistake I think a lot of agencies make when they track ROI, they track it off top line revenue. Like, we've got to get into a much nittier, grittier relationship with our clients than just top line revenue. We need to know what the actual margins are at the end of the day. So, as you know, obviously, so if you've got 40% margins on something, a 2x return on top line revenue isn't going to cut it. We've got to make sure that we've got better margins than that. And other times there are higher margin items where we don't necessarily need as much leg room on the marketing side. And so we need to take all that into consideration from the get-go so that we've reverse engineered this thing. So that way, whatever we're doing, we can give it a grade at the end of the month or end of the quarter or whatever our reporting period is. This either worked or it didn't work. It was either excellent or it sucked. And then here's what we learned and here's what we're going to do different next time. And that's the big thing for us is not everything we do, Gene, is going to be a home run. Last I checked, most agencies still employ humans despite the rise of AI. So any organization that employs humans, mistakes are going to be made and no campaign is going to be perfect. But to me, that partnership mindset means that not only are we going to deliver great results, but when we don't, we're going to be honest about that too, and we're going to be accountable. And so rather than just sending over the same watered down Google Analytics report that every agency sends over to every client, we're actually going to give you analysis on, hey, this is what worked and this is what didn't, and here's what we want to do different this month. Or here's how we're going to take those great results and try to 10x them. So we always have ideas and always have an idea of where we want to go in addition to where we are. And I'd say the second part of ROI, just to answer your original question, is what's the ROI for the actual direct report for us? So there are obviously metrics that matter for the organization as a whole, which with sales being the bottom line. And then the other side, Gene, I think that we try to hit on for clients is we always ask our marketing managers like, hey, what's your boss going to look at? Maybe it's not really relevant to the overall campaign, but if we can get you some vanity metrics, that's going to help you out and that's going to make you look good with your bosses. To us, that's being a good partner. Because it's a lot of times the marketing manager, anytime they hire an agency, they're sticking their neck out because if the agency doesn't do well or doesn't perform up to snuff, that marketing manager is going to be held accountable. And I'd imagine most marketing managers don't get to choose the wrong agency too many times in a row before there's a new marketing manager making that decision instead.
And they all get that. If you're listening in here, you understand some of the things that Tyler's been talking about. So I think this is even better than what we originally planned, Tyler.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it really does help people understand, how to work with an agency. And there are different types of agencies. Do you want a vendor? Great. If you want a partner, here's some of the things we're looking at. So I'm going to give you a chance here. I'm going to toss you a hot one. There's a practical and actual in every episode. So what would be the 3 questions that you wished a company would ask you to let them know that you're the right strategic partner for them, for their agency?
That's great. That's a great question. So three. No one's asked me that yet. So that's great. I'd say 3 things that we wish they asked, because a lot of times we'll get into it. But what do you wish they asked you? I'd say number one. I think so. Oftentimes, brands can get hung up on how many offices you have, or how big your team is, or or what are the biggest logos that you've worked with. What I'd rather they ask is, what experience do you have relevant to us? So for example, ask us, what case studies do you have that where you've solved a problem similar to the one we're facing, even if it's not the same industry or same size company or whatever, right? So let's focus on how the agency thinks, and to us that's a big thing is identifying how we go about solving problems versus how someone else goes about solving problems. Also figuring out, from a cadence standpoint, who are the people actually working on my account? So that's another thing I think people should ask right from the get-go. So it's one thing to have 4 or 5 senior level people come into a pitch that you'll never see again once you sign. I'm a big believer in getting whoever the actual stakeholders in the account will be involved in the pitch from the get-go. So that way there's no awkward transition after we sign somebody, right? Like they're still talking to the same account people, the same SEO pro, the same email marketing expert, whatever the case may be, that they were during the pitch. So and obviously we're not a huge company at Fidelitas, so that's not hard for us. But even as we scale, like when we get to 500 employees, I want to operate the same way that we do at our current size. It's that same mindset of letting there be some continuity between brands and the teams that they're working with. And I'd say, and the third thing is again, what we've already been preaching on, Gene, which is ROI, which is how are you going to track ROI for us? Like what's a successful relationship look like for you? Because every agency should know that. And if they don't know what a successful agency client relationship looks like from the agency's perspective, they're going to have a very hard time delivering, and they're either going to be under delivering and putting a strain on the client, or they're going to be over delivering and putting such a strain on their agency that it's not sustainable in the long run. And they'll either end up firing the client or going out of business. So that's why it's really important. And that's one thing we're transparent of from the get-go is, look, for this to work, we both have to make money in this relationship. Otherwise, one of us isn't going to be around very long.
Yeah. Well, I know I surprised you by these 3 questions, but I think you did a really good job there, Tyler. So I think anyone listening into this could take those and add them to whatever they're doing with that next agency hire, next strategic partner hire, and they could ask those questions. And I think it adds value to this. So if our audience is listening into us and would love to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Awesome, Gene. Fidelitasdevelopment.com. And I'm going to kindly ask you to put a link in the show notes because it's a mouthful for people that don't want to spell it. Or if you just Google Tyler Sickmeyer, you'll find me. My last name isn't much easier to spell than Fidelitas, but either way, would love to connect with you there. Also, I'm on Twitter at @Sickmeyer. Or we also have a podcast, which Gene, you were a guest on in the early days. The Lion's Share Marketing Podcast is on iTunes and Spotify and Stitcher and all those other fun places too. So if a listener has such great taste, Gene, that they're listening to you, I would hope that they would give us a try as well.
Well, we'll put all that links into the show notes. Thanks for sharing your insight here. I think this topic is right on target for those listening in. So it
was my pleasure, Gene. Thanks again for having me.
All right, fantastic episode with Tyler. I love talking to previous clients that are rocking and crushing it. These guys are growing amazingly. They're speaking on big stages. We talked about some of the things offline, what they're doing. It's just really impressive. Hopefully you enjoyed today's episode because it really will change the way you look at your vendors and your strategic partners. And I want you to get the right company for you. It may be Tyler's company. It may be someone else, but this whole thing is about breaking down silos so that you can find the right company for you that actually produces an ROI. As always, go to leadersinthetrenches.com to find more episodes of this. And you can also go to genehammett.com/hypergrowth if you want our latest research on hypergrowth companies, understanding the chaos that it takes to do that and doing it with your team. All right, take care. Listen to you next time.